Good evening and welcome to TalkSports, our midweek program where we speak with the movers and shakers of sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, administrators past and present. Well, on this week's program, we move to a special topic, that of sports tourism. Indeed, yes, sports tourism. And it's a very burning topic and dear to the Caribbean in particular. And our special guest this evening will look at the advantages, especially, well, we look primarily at the advantages of sports tourism to regional, that's Caribbean economies. So I want to introduce my special guest this evening. He is the chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority and the person is no stranger to the media, no stranger to the issues of sports tourism in particular. I'm speaking of Mr. Barry Collymore. Let me welcome Mr. Barry Collymore to our program. Good evening to you, Mr. Barry Collymore.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine.
You forgot one of my titles.
Tell me the title.
Your friend.
A friend in, you mean?
Your friend.
Oh, my friend. Barry always Barry. Yeah, but no, but
that's the most important thing.
Indeed, yes. And folks, and Barry say friend in terms of
we go back a long way.
We go back a long way. I mean, I don't think there's anyone on the program who I've spoken to who would have gone back that way. I mean, I'm talking about years now.
Yes,
and by way of introduction too, I should let you know, folks, that Barry Collymore, I should say Barry Collymore's credential spreads all the way. I mentioned in the media as well, because when we speak about the media, we speak about the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, for example, CBU, for those who may know. We don't hear much about CBU now. We hear a lot about CMC and others and Carib Vision and things, but CBU was the go-to in terms of Caribbean broadcasting back then. And one would recall Barry in the newsroom as well. And Barry would have had experience with Olympics and all these sort of things, you know.
That's right.
So so I'm saying that in the context of the discussion this evening, I think falls in the lap of Barry as the chair of the Grenada Tourism Authority. So Barry, let's look at the whole issue regarding Caribbean tourism and sports tourism in particular. What we'll say a multi-billion-dollar industry. And how do you think, Caribbean countries can, zone in on the whole issue of sports tourism, which was a big thing a few years ago in terms of, in terms of the Caribbean. It was among CARICOM discussions and all these sort of things. We have just about everything in terms of infrastructure. I'm talking about sporting facilities. We have the beaches, we have the hotels, and we have the warm hospitality, So how can we as Caribbean countries, Barry, zone in onto the advantages of sports tourism in a post-pandemic era?
Well, let me just start by congratulating the West Indies cricket team for their phenomenal rise in the test rankings.
Certainly, yeah.
I was looking at it today. I spoke to Ron Lewis today, and
our dear manager.
So yeah, I'm so proud of the West Indies team. They're doing well, and as a Caribbean man, I feel very proud of the progress that they're making, and credit to the team and the leadership of the West Indies Cricket Board. In terms of sport tourism, Michael, it is something that we have failed to capitalize on in a big way, but it's not too late for us to capitalize on it. And let me explain. In a post-pandemic era, post-COVID, or we still are in COVID period, but we like to think that, I hope that we are more away from it than into it. One of the things that is going to be most important for travel is safety. And the Caribbean has been able to do relatively well. I mean, there's some exceptions, but in general, the Caribbean has done very well in their management of the COVID pandemic. And I knocked wood here because there's still some way to go. We're not out of the woods, and I'm not suggesting that. But I think that the cooperation of the people of the Caribbean, the policy set by the government, and support from the private sector and the non-governmental organizations has been good. And it has put us, most islands in the Caribbean, in a good place. With that being said, safety is going to be now one of the most important uh, aspects of travel, and that includes travel for sports tourism. You may or may not know that viewers may or may not know that South Africa is coming to the West Indies very soon, and safety is something that everyone is looking at. That's for cricket. And then we have an England tour scheduled for next year. And teams will want to travel in two places where um, not just that have the facilities, but that are safe. So if I keep saying the choices that we make right now are going to affect our future long term. The choices that we're making in terms of COVID, how we're managing the pandemic, etc. These are the choices that will determine what will happen. And I think that because we have the facilities, because we are seen as relatively safe destinations, I think that more and not only that, we're seen as fun destinations, places that people want to travel to, places that when you travel to, you don't have too much of a hassle and you are able to be in a relaxed environment. I think a lot of sporting teams, with the right marketing, with the right focus, and with the right persons guiding the process, the Caribbean could become a real sport tourism powerhouse.
Uh, well, rightly so, Barry. And sports tourism is an old concept, as we'll say. Dating back all the way to the Olympic, and just not just Olympic games, but the ancient Olympic games as an example of sports tourism, where people would travel to watch or compete in competitions. But what's about the sports tourism economic impact for Caribbean countries? I mean, in many cases we know, and we can see it in European countries, for example, that sports tourism brings some significant benefits, I would say, to destinations that host events. You mentioned, for example, South Africa coming to the tour in the Caribbean next month. England, for example, traditionally, comes, and they come not just with the cricketers, they come with thousands of supporters.
Yeah.
So how can we look at the economic impact of these hosting these sporting events, Barry, to Caribbean countries?
Well, the economic impact is not just in terms of the heads on beds in the hotels,
Right.
and the visitor spend in restaurants and other facilities. Sporting events come with a huge amount of marketing, and what they do is they leave a legacy, a marketing and promotional legacy for the countries that host these events, so that they expose the countries to large audiences that oftentimes you can't pay for. There are events, everybody, you can remember, almost, if you think about it, there are cities that you would never have really thought about until they hosted an Olympic event. There are cities that you would never have thought about until they hosted a Commonwealth Games or something like that. You may not even know that they existed. The point is that um, sport sporting events bring a new level of marketing, a new level of exposure, a new customer, and a new niche to the tourism product in every country. Sporting fans generally want to not just watch the game, but they're generally interested in finding out more about the country, finding out more about the culture of the country, and exploring the country. and oftentimes you will find that the experiences that people get with traveling with sports are so memorable that they will go back and back and back and back again. Um, but sport is not just sport. Sport is also can be described as leisure tourism,
Right.
and I want us to um, think about both aspects, sport and leisure tourism, because um, we have possibly the one of the greatest examples of leisure tourism in the world existing in the Caribbean, and that is Trinidad Carnival. Um, People have gone to Trinidad Carnival for years, doing the same thing, playing in the same bands, uh, uh, and it is one of the most successful tourism products in the Caribbean. And it only happens over a week or two, but it's extremely successful. It has left a legacy and has put Trinidad on the cultural map, and these are the kinds of things that, when you talk about sport and leisure, these are the kinds of things that, the intangibles, people, you will find somebody going to Trinidad Carnival for 20 years, and they've never missed one. If they miss one, it's, this is the kinds of things that sport and leisure does. It creates um, important niches, and it creates a culture of habit, almost a ritual. When you look at fans that follow, for instance, the Premier Leagues, football Premier, they follow their team wherever they go. So there is almost an irrational element, um, and there's a habitual, obsessive, psychological element that attaches itself to sport tourism, that is able to um, work its way through almost any. People will drop whatever they're doing to follow their team, or to go to Trinidad Carnival, or to do whatever, because it brings them such enjoyment, that they are willing to suspend other areas of their lives to participate in this type of thing. So we we have a great example. Sometimes in the Caribbean, Michael, we don't give each we don't, as Caribbean men and women, we always look at something outside. We don't look in and see things that we're doing well. And Trinidad Carnival is something that is for leisure tourism and event tourism. Um, it's something that is really has become a global event. There are other things, it really has created a niche, and almost a ritual.
Mhm. But are there challenges faced by Caribbean countries um, in regards to sports tourism and pursuit of sports tourism in the context, Barry, of the some of the limitation? And I'm talking about the immediate, future in
Mm.
terms of the limitations with the pandemic. For example, hotels requiring guests to be vaccinated, and all
Mm.
sorts of protocols. So do you see challenges faced to that industry, sports tourism industry?
There are challenges to the industry in general,
Mhm.
but the way that the travel industry is moving, you probably will not be able to get on a plane very soon without a vaccine anyway. So if you are traveling in the future, and I'm not talking in the distant future, you will probably not be able to travel anywhere unless you are vaccinated. IATA is coming out with a vaccine passport. They're testing it now. JetBlue and others are coming out with their vaccine verification apps. Grenada is very much involved in that, and the same COVID challenges that face any other part of the travel sector face it. Sports tourism faces. So there's no difference. The difference for us here in the Caribbean is this: we have relatively safe destinations. We have places in the Eastern Caribbean, especially where social distancing is possible, because we are not living on top of each other. We have open spaces and so on, and people feel comfortable. Um, and the Caribbean is not a place with a lot of endemic problems and places that um, you know things that really are negative to travel. So I see much more opportunity for us in sports tourism than I see challenges. I see teams coming here um, and avoiding going to places like South Africa. South Africa is a big warm weather training venue for England county cricket. I don't see those county teams going down to South Africa now, at least not in the immediate future. When I look at Europe and what is going on, and we look at what's happening in Portugal, and there are people queuing up to go to the Med and they can't because of the COVID infection there. Now, I hope I'm not speaking too soon, and I hope that we will continue to, good sense will continue to prevail here in the Caribbean, and we will not get complacent, and we will not allow COVID to infiltrate our small economies like it has in other places. But if we keep things safe, if we are moderate in our approaches, if we are patient, I think that um, the Greeks, there's an old Latin phrase, "festina lente," hasten slowly. If we uh, are measured and careful in our reopenings, I think that we could reap serious rewards um, from event, leisure, and traditional sporting tourism. South Africa is not coming to the Caribbean because it is unsafe. South Africa is coming to the Caribbean because it is in fact safe. England is not planning a tour, big tour, and there's no greater testimony to uh, the sacrifice that we've made here under COVID times, to the policies being implemented by Caribbean governments, etc. And this England tour, which is coming up, and people, it is a great demonstration of the way, uh, and if we get it right, it will be one of the great uh, marketing displays for the Caribbean in terms of not just our cricket legacy and traditional cricket legacy, but in terms of the way that we have managed this pandemic. So that I see a lot of opportunity, Michael. I see areas that are maybe out of bounds for a little while because of the way that they have managed or not managed the COVID situation. And please, I'm not trying to be. I hope I don't sound opportunistic, and I'm not um, making light of anyone's serious situation. But I'm just identifying the facts here that we have uh, a really, really uh, unprecedented opportunity now to capitalize on sport, leisure, and event tourism.
But and if probably you can go into some more details, Barry, in terms of
Mhm.
specifics. What do you what sort of initiative you think that Caribbean countries could develop, aimed at the diversification of their, local economies, and away from more or less the historic dependence on just tourism itself, and using sports tourism as one example. I mean, you say that you're seeing opportunities available.
Mhm.
Could you be specific in terms of some initiatives that you believe that, you know, Caribbean governments, Caribbean countries can zone in on?
I mean, there are certainly for professional sport. I think that we can certainly look at more professional sporting teams coming to the Caribbean for warm weather training because of the problems that exist in Europe and some parts of Africa, which were the traditional warm weather training venues. I think that there are areas, there's a huge, huge opportunity, and Grenada should capitalize on this. In fact, we had a meeting of the GTA today. We discussed this. There's a huge opportunity in dive tourism that we need to. Diving is a $1 billion industry, and we need to do much better in attracting and marketing to the dive community throughout the world, because we have some fantastic dive sites in Grenada and in other parts of the Caribbean. So that certainly would be one of them. And not only um, diving and professional sports, but when you look at um, the 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 aspect of community tourism, and um, for a people are traveling much more now, and the data is showing this, that uh, people want much more unique experiences when they travel. So let me give you a specific example. Caribbean tourism has traditionally evolved around repeat tourism. Mr. John Brown from Surrey comes to Grenada and stays in his, he and his wife stay in the same room, and they've stayed in the same room for 20 years, and they come exactly at the same time, and they have their eggs the same way, and everybody knows, because people create these repeat things, and the repeat tourism that we've had has served us well. But guess what? Mr. John Brown's children, sorry, aren't interested in staying in the same room year after year. They want to go to different places. They want to take Instagram pictures. They want to post things up on TikTok. They want to post things that no one has seen before, no one has done before, etc. They want to do unique things. They want to integrate with the community, and they want to have a life. The psychologists call it the positional element, where people enjoy activities not just because they are enjoyable, but because of bragging rights, because they get then to go and tell their friends, look, I've done this and you haven't. Um, and those are the kinds of things. So we need to integrate um, our local sport a lot more into the tourism. Things like in Barbados with the road tennis, um, Grenada village cricket matches could be part of a tourism product. Um, People want to integrate more, particularly post pandemic. Community tourism is going to become even bigger, because people will want uh, to give back, and they want to feel a part of a community. People have been pent up in their homes and their own little bubbles for too long, and there's a longing and there's a pent up demand for people to explore and do new things and all of that. And we have a fantastic opportunity to showcase not just our sport but our culture. Shakespeare Mass and boat building in Carriacou, and Jab Jab in Grenada, and all of the other the Jamaicans with their uh, dominant reggae culture, Trinidad music, the French influence in St. Lucia, all of these things with sport and leisure. We have an opportunity now to add, um, strategically add um, elements of our own culture to traditional tourism, to make it more interesting, to make it more fun, to make it more Instagrammable, and certainly to create more desire for new travelers to come to Grenada and the Caribbean.
Okay, because I'm tempted, Barry, to ask you if, and that's your personal view, Barry, in terms of whether Caribbean countries really understand and appreciate the impact of sports tourism on economic development. You know, you give some examples,
Mhm.
Barry, of some initiatives, but do you get the feel that, Caribbean countries are thinking of the real economic facts regarding sports tourism, or do you think that we are being left behind?
I think that the hosting of the World Cup in 2007 showed a great seriousness about, this is the Cricket World Cup, of
Yeah.
how serious governments. Don't forget that governments of the Caribbean have generally invested heavily in facilities, stadia, and lighting and playing fields and so on, um, in the region. But I don't think it's the government's role to, or it is only the government's role to push tourism or sports tourism. And I think that our most of these countries in the Caribbean have stadium facilities. Most of them have playing fields, athletic facilities. But what happens to them is that you build it and you lock it up. This is where the national governing bodies of sport have fallen down and have been weak, and have not been as imaginative as they can be. The Caribbean is a great place. It is the best place on earth as far as I'm concerned. Why wouldn't you want to come to the Caribbean and play sports? But I feel that our national governing bodies of sport need to be more forward thinking in not just preparing elite athletes to go somewhere, but to create products that, uh, with the private sector and others, that will want people to come to the Caribbean. And they're the ones with the expertise. Um, you know, the Indian IPL came out of nowhere. The Indian IPL, as far as I know, is not a creation of, uh, of a government. It's a creation of creative, imaginative business persons uh, and governing bodies of sport that decided to create a niche. Can you imagine if we created something here like a beach cricket um, uh, product, or something like that? Lots of people are playing football on sand now, and other types of activities and that kind of thing. We have tremendous beaches. They're underutilized, um, for sporting activity, and we have tremendous facilities. So I would say that it will not. It's not just about governments. The governments build the facilities, but it is how we as a people see these facilities and how we treat them, and the fact that a sporting facility really is not just the 8 to 4 facility, or it's not just something that you open up when a team comes here. We have to utilize our facilities much more, create products that, and there's a role for tourism associations, national governing bodies of sport, and so on. We have to be more creative. Our national governing bodies of sport have been doing the same things over and over and over and over for years, traveling here, traveling there, going to this meeting, whatever. They have to be much more focused on creating a Caribbean sporting product, a Caribbean sporting product for export.
And how do you think, Barry, that conversation? And I'm glad you mentioned that. So, do you see the need for a wider conversation on that? Because it seems, as you indicated, and rightly so, I think that's the belief all along, that it's the responsibility of government, and but you're saying it has to be a little more inclusive in terms of not just governments. Governments may have the primary responsibility, for example, of facilities, providing the infrastructure. But sporting associations, community groups, more involvement. They have to be more inclusive to understand the economic impact, and not just the economic impact, but the trickle down effect of
Yes.
sports tourism. So,
Yes.
how do you think we can go about ensuring that there is a conversation and that others understand the role that they play in that?
I think that we have to be a lot more. I mean, the national governing bodies of sport have to step up. Um, they have to realize that they're the guardians and the gatekeepers of sport, and they have to step up and start creating some of these products. I think the private sector as well has to get more involved, with them and with support from the government. But you know, the time now is for action. There's a lot of people talking and talking around the issue, and there's a time now for somebody to do something. Michael, when you guys, I remember a few years ago when you guys created the athletics event here in Grenada. That was not a government event. There was no government that created that event. You know, it's a fantastic event where you had athletes from all over the world coming to Grenada to race. But a government didn't create that. When we did the Shell Cricket Academy, a government didn't create that academy. It has to be you know, it has to be, and I don't think it's the responsibility of the. I think government provides um, the regulatory framework. Government provides the facilities, and government should provide the things like security and safety and so on. That transportation, ability to get from point A to B. Um, in terms of the road network. But I think that we have to become a lot more entrepreneurial with sport, and the young people and the creative people out there who have ideas have to be a lot more forceful, be a lot more determined, and implement things which are desirable. Let me give you an example. There's a guy on Facebook. I can't remember his full name, but his name is Delon or something like that. Or DeLeon. He takes people on hikes, right?
Like a tour guide.
He's more than a tour guide.
Tour
You know,
guide, right? Okay.
I see him all the time. He's taking. I think his name is Delon Rail Grenadian or something. I can't remember his name, right? But every week he's posting pictures of people, Grenadians. This is this is COVID time, right? But he has got a business up. People are frustrated staying inside. He's obviously got all the protocols and the permissions and so on, and he is capturing fantastic photography, and he is taking people all around Grenadians all around Grenada um, on these hikes, and every week you see the groups are growing, and it's not just him that's doing it. The other people are doing private people that are doing other things that are imaginative, that are creative, and this is where we need to realize that sport is something that it's not just about cricket ball or football. Sport is leisure, and we need to look at what are the things that are will bring leisure and enjoyment, get people off the beaches sometimes and into the forest and into the or down in the waterfalls and in the communities and that kind of thing. And this is where strong community um, groups, community leaders, um, creative young people, all of those types of persons will have to come together and create products which then feed into tourism. There's a guy that contacted me recently. I think his name is Charles, Ian Charles. I think that's his name. And he's saying Barry, he's got a fantastic product for Jab Jab, and it's not old oil. It's not it's clean. It's not toxic, and it's something that they think that tourists might want to do. Why wouldn't you want to? And you know what they do? A lot of these tourists, a lot of people, they just want to put it on their skin, take a picture, and post it, and then but that's all really they want to do. There are cases all over the world where people um, do things. Um, they spend 5-10 minutes doing it, you know, and then that's it. That's all they need. All they need is a photo. So we've got to, um, uh, you know, start thinking about a lot of what I call experience tourism, and sport tourism is not just about professional teams, but it is about the experiences that you can create in your community, which can be attractive to visitors and to the local community. it can be true integrators of community and visitors, which can lead to tremendous benefits and cross-cultural interchanges between persons from outside and inside the community.
Mhm. But Barry, in all of that, there's an important element that we sometimes miss, and I know sometimes it's, I don't want to say it's a downfall of the Caribbean per se, but the whole issue of event management. The management of events, obviously raises issues for things like public relations, the concerns relations to the communications, ethics, safety, the social responsibility, and in some cases, globalization. So the whole issue of event management is an important element or important factor regarding sports tourism. And sometimes we don't take it that serious. And probably as your involvement in tourism per se, that management per se, I should say, is very, very important. How do we ensure that in the pursuit of sports tourism, that we do have the personnel, we do have the resources in terms of event management?
Well, we've got to do a lot more with training,
Right.
not just event management, but training and service in general. Um, a few weeks ago, myself, my partner Danny Fakri, and Naguib Sawiris launched the West Indies School of Hospitality, which is going to start with close to 6,000 scholarships for persons in the hospitality and leisure sector. And a big part of that um, is going to be focused on service quality management, leadership, etc. We've got to, we've got to do more training. We've got to have more exposure. The great sporting event destinations did not start off at 100. They started off at 30, 40, 50, and they went up to 100. Really and truly, you don't know how to do something until you do it. And the more we do, the better we should get at it. So a combination of training and and actually getting products out there that are marketable and that you can improve on and and so on. And it is very important, Michael, where sport is concerned, that our sporting organizations, our national governing bodies of sports recognize that their responsibility, and they recognize that uh, they should play a role, and the tourism authority as well, which I chair. We have to become much better in creating niches, working with all sectors in creating niches and products that people will enjoy. It's not just now about somebody coming and sitting on the beach and for a whole day and suntanning. People want pleasurable experiences that they will remember for a long time, and sport enables persons. It builds camaraderie. It builds linkages in the community, and it enables people to form bonds of. I mean, if you play sport with a man, um, or a woman or whoever, um, over the years, and you're on the same team, if you've ever been on the same team as somebody, you remember that person for years. You played competitive, and oh yes, I played against you, and those are the kinds of that's the kind of rivalry and things that are healthy. And let me say this, and this may be a little bit controversial, but I feel that as well, that um, in a sense, the way that we socialize in the Caribbean, or the way that we are um, beginning to, the heavy reliance on liming and alcohol as our avenues of leisure is probably one of the reasons why some places are having a harder time with the pandemic than others, because we have forgotten some of the traditional ways in which we socialize, um, through sport, and people aren't playing as much sport as they used to. Um, Men will spend a whole day on the block lineman, and I'm not condemning anyone or saying that that's a bad thing. But when you look at our incidence of non-communicable diseases, um, high rates of hypertension and diabetes, is because we have become too sedentary. And you and I know, Michael, when you watch as a kid, when you watch the West Indies on TV, if you're fortunate to have a TV or you watch it by your neighbor, and the game ends, especially when the West Indies, like the first thing you do is you go out in the road and you play cricket with the boys, or you because that example is there. Um, I think that we have to. Sport is not just, in terms of sports tourism, it's not just about the visitor. It's also about us and keeping our populations healthy, and setting an example for future generations. So I think it's extremely important, and I think that there are huge avenues, not just for professional sport, but other leisure activities like diving, and even something as birding, where you take care of your environment. Bird watching is a huge. People travel all around the world to look at different birds and species and that kind of thing. So um, we have an opportunity now, through sport, through leisure, because of our record, stellar record in most places in the Caribbean, of managing the pandemic, to use sport and leisure as an add-on, as an adjunct, and as a catalyst, and indeed a great marketing vehicle to get people who would not normally come to the Caribbean to come to the Caribbean.
Okay. Let me get some comments there from that's Mr. Chenny Joseph, who is actually the president of the Grenada Football Association. He's saying interesting dialogue tonight and good food for thought. The ideas from Barry is encouraging, and as an acceptance of such an open invitation, it would be nice for our respective organizations engage on preliminary discussions. We are currently looking at inviting youth teams to Grenada for the summer on what hopefully may become an annual event. We are ready to gain insights from you. Barry?
Sorry, Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. Sorry.
Well, he's basically saying that, very good insights from you, and that the GFA, I assume he's referring to, they're looking at inviting youth teams to Grenada for the summer on what he believes can become an annual event. And I think the invitation is out
Chenny,
to you.
Yeah, Chenny is a forward-thinking guy.
Yeah,
and he's
progressive.
Always thinking. Yeah, he spends a lot of time thinking, and he gets things done. And I think I agree with him. Why not? It's safe. We have the facilities. Why wouldn't he do that? He's absolutely right. But that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of stepping up that national governing bodies of sport need to do. And don't not you're not depending on the government. The government is there to set up the right regulatory framework. They're private people, national governing bodies of sport, that have to think more creatively, and have to think not just of the professional athlete. When you look at sport, most people who play sport in the world are not professional athletes. Most people are part timers. Most people that play sports play it just for the fun of it, but we're not capitalizing on that. Now you tell me something, Michael. I want to ask you. I want to ask you a question now. If you put and I want to see your reaction. So put the split screen up, please.
Barry?
If you are in Grenada and you arrive in Grenada tomorrow, right, with a group of friends, and you wanted to play a game of cricket, hardball cricket, and you were trying to find a prepared pitch, how would you find it?
Oh, well, you have to, whether it's the Ministry of
You can't
Sports.
even answer.
No, I'm saying whether it's the Ministry of Sports or whether it's the Grenada Cricket Association.
It shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I do understand. Right. Yeah.
We should
That's
have through
true.
through
Yeah.
we should have through our national governing bodies of sport a
Right.
series of prepared pitches
Which is yeah.
to some degree,
Hmm.
right? Where people and where you use the coaches of which the coaches employed by the Ministry of Sport and others should not just be there to encourage um, persons who are expert sportsmen and women. They should be as well trying to create a culture of um, a sporting culture, a culture that involves a sport for all culture. I'm not blaming the coaches. I'm just saying this is something that we should be doing. We should be the 30 and the 40 and the 50 and the 60-year-olds and others um, should be out playing sport, and they should be encouraged, and there should be people on hand organizing community events at all um, age groups so people can become um, more active and you have a healthier population as a whole. A lot of people give up on sport in their teens and they never play again. Not that they're not interested, but sometimes you need to organize things so that people can, so that you can create an interest. So that um, I'm happy with what Jenny is saying about inviting youth teams here, and I hope that in him his doing that, that he also doesn't just look at the boys and girls who are um, professional footballers, but look at the boys and girls who just love football. Um, Michael, our friend Lester, I cannot leave out Lester here. Lester is um, running a football camp
And you're referring
every.
to Lester Smith, right? Yeah.
Of course, there's only
Yeah.
one Lester.
Yeah.
Lester is he has a fantastic product here in Grenada where he's got the kids on the beach, the kids in Tantine, and not just Lester, but there are others. And he's got people running upstairs and lifting, and he's creating a fun way for people to get fit and um, for people to enjoy themselves. Now, this is something that he can integrate into not just the local population, but get the visitors involved in it as well. And 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 you know when you see the kids playing, everyone's having fun. There's no, it's not about just drills and things. The kids are having fun, and that's what we need more of. We sport is not just about um, two teams playing each other and one winning. It's about um, camaraderie, meeting people, the social element of it, people having fun, and that's what we have to also, we have to get more back to more what I call healthier socialization, rather than just sitting idly and drinking or talking. Sport is a great way to bring communities and bring people together.
Mhm. Some important points you raised there, and one has to do well, and you did say about Cheney regarding the amateur, when he's inviting the youth team, because as you say, if you look at them, obviously you're talking about their parents coming, relatives, friends, traveling with them. So that's an
Yeah,
element of sports tourism.
yeah,
And in addition to that, you develop a relationship where 4 or 5 years from now, and in some cases we have seen they are repeated visitors because of the experience they would have had, coming at a very young age.
yeah. Of course.
We see, for
Michael, can
example,
you
with St.
imagine,
George's
right?
University. St. George's
Yeah.
University is an
Can you
example.
imagine? Can you imagine if somebody like Lester? I'm not Lester. I'm not picking on you, but somebody like Lester, um, went around to the hotels, and there are many families traveling with kids and so on, and offered uh, um, to football as well, not just to the local population, but to um, kids um, of people who are on vacation here. You set up little football um, goals and stuff on the beach, and encourage visitors, and not just the kids but the adults, to play. It just adds to the experience. You know, this is something that people will sit down and talk about for years. Oh, we went to Grenada, and the guy just showed up with some, the guy said there will be this. No, well, not just show up, it's probably organized, and we played football on the beach, or we played cricket on the beach. You know, we've got to find a way of um, bringing sport tourism. Is not just about professional teams, but it's about the whole culture of sport and how we integrate it into not just the local population, but with our visitors as well.
Yeah,
Sport
and
for all.
right, and very important, Barry, too, in that I like the point with, because I recall, and you put me on the spot a while ago regarding that. No, but it's important, because what I recall some time ago, and I know thinking about it, the question you
Yes,
asked was valid indeed, because I recall
yes,
some years ago when I was in Grenada at the time, visiting or so, some folks, apparently they were on a cruise,
yes,
and they were actually a cricket team, albeit an amateur cricket team, and they were
yes.
looking for somewhere to play cricket and a
Can't
team
find
to
it.
play cricket.
Yeah,
But and as you said, the facility, well, yes, we had canteen, we had the stadium, but a prepared pitch wasn't available.
that's right.
And it's a very important point you make, and I just recall that. And
Yeah,
in fact, I was at the athletic stadium at the time when they came around. You know, and they were actually looking for it, and it was an opportunity that I would say that we would have lost. And it's a
yeah,
very important point. We have the facilities, but again, there's nothing wrong in having the pitch prepared. It's not to say we play cricket every day, so there's
exactly.
nothing wrong with that. But another interesting point, Barry, and it's more regional in the sense, and I want to look at Trinidad and Tobago. One of the advantages with Trinidad and Tobago is the expanse of facilities, stadia in particular. They have about 5 of these, whether it's the Dwight York Stadium, here's the Crawford Stadium, the one in Couva, etc., etc. But whether or not, the point is whether or not Trinidad and Tobago is really utilizing facilities. Let's forget about the pandemic now. World-class facilities in that of a velodrome, swimming, Olympic-sized swimming pool. So when we look at the Caribbean, Trinidad falls into that of probably, especially the Southern Caribbean, in terms of world-class facilities, cricket, football, volleyball, swimming, just name it. Even tennis to an extent, because they have the tennis complex and things like that. How can we, and I'm saying we in that other countries like Grenada, St. Lucia, others may not be in the bracket of St. Lucia, of Trinidad and Tobago, to put these facilities available, at use. But how can we utilize? How can Caribbean countries come together and utilize? Bahamas is in the north, and they probably may be in a different bracket to an extent, closer to the southern US, and things like that. So, but how can we utilize facilities like in Trinidad, in terms of sports tourism? And one example would have been the CPL, for example. Um, how when you talk about the IPL, the CPL is another one. Okay, how can we utilize these international facilities to the benefit of the region?
The facilities in Trinidad you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes, yes.
Well, I mean, we need to be a lot more regional in general in terms of our whole outlook on tourism and travel. One of the greatest tragedies of Caribbean tourism is the demise of Liat, and I will always say that Liat should have been saved, and it should have been not. It should not have been in the position it was in the first place. It should not have been taxed so heavily by governments across the region, and Liat was almost taxed to the point where it was not affordable to the persons who it it really intended to serve. So anytime I talk about regionalism, I always begin with Liat, because unless you can get there, um, there's no reason you can't travel through the region anymore. Um, So I don't. The answer to that, Michael, is I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We need the first thing we need is a reliable and affordable way to travel around the Caribbean, and I do not think that we have that right now. Um, so um, the answer to your question is I don't know. Um, what we need to do is be more. Um, I've always advocated, for instance, that when you landed in the Caribbean, it should be like the European zone where you land in Trinidad and you're cleared to immigration, or you land in Grenada and you're cleared to immigration in all the Caribbean islands participating. So one destinate, one entry, and many islands. Um, but without reliable air transport um, between these islands that connects these islands, um, I really don't see um, I don't really see that great a movement between the Caribbean. Now, there's always exceptions and there are always things that can happen, um, but certainly we could be, for instance, having a talent ID system, which then um, which is a Caribbean talent ID system, which identifies talent from every Caribbean island and places that talent in the best facilities in the Caribbean. And if they are in Trinidad, then the kids are spend time in Trinidad training in some of the best facilities, because part of the reason why people don't go on is that they don't have the facilities. In Grenada, the swimmers are swimming in a pool that is not Olympic size, so they need an Olympic size pool to really progress. Um, and there are other examples of where facilities may be a hindrance. So we need probably a talent ID system, identifying the best talent in the region, and a mentorship system that goes on with that, where the kids can train and exist in a safe environment, because safety is the and protection of kids is the most important thing where that would be concerned. And a system where if you have the facilities in Trinidad, then we, with the cooperation between the governments, you should be able to use them and get the best people training at the best um, facilities. But added to that as well, I keep coming back to the whole leisure aspect of uh, tourism. That um, our leisure should not traveling, if we can travel around the Caribbean, should not just be restricted to partying. There should be events created which are healthier, which are more fun, and which are more imaginative, and sport can provide some of those avenues.
Mhm. And sorry, we didn't have much time to talk about that last aspect you came up with there, which is very important. The whole issue of air transportation, regional air
Yeah,
transportation, because
yeah,
it's a very important element of sports tourism. And we know the problem already faced with just tourism alone regarding air transportation. And hopefully, Barry, that this is a responsibility now of regional governments, as we'll say,
yeah,
in terms of getting regional air transportation, regional airlift is very important. And
yeah.
in terms of your part in World, Barry, how do you see we moving forward with that aspect, getting over that major challenge to ensure that we really reap the benefits of sports tourism?
Which challenge you speak of?
The regional air transportation, Barry.
I don't know. It's been undone. I don't know how you get it back. I don't know
On
how I don't know how you get the I don't know how you get the genie back in the bottle. It's been completely undone. And I honestly don't know. And people have asked me that all along, and I said I don't know. And what will probably have to happen is that some of our large hoteliers may at some point create a service which can travel between points of their hotels, or if the governments see it fit to create um, one clearance into the Caribbean, where it then becomes easier to travel around the Caribbean. Then you don't have to go through immigration in each island. Then an investor may see it fit to put on an air service that, because so many different islands, you can get access to so many different islands from landing in one. But after the demolition of Leah, I don't know how you put it back together. I certainly have always said that I knew that with the demise of Leah, air transport would become more difficult, and it would not become cheaper, and I think I've been proven right. So I don't know how you do that, but um, other than guessing that if we um, if there are hoteliers with hotels in different islands, and that government creates a policy where you can clear through the Caribbean, then somebody may see that as a business model which they can adapt, and then they can look at it. But whatever you create has to be affordable to the customer, and that was the problem. Liat became because of the high taxes of government, became unaffordable to the customer that they were meant to be serving, and that was the problem.
And Lee had served the OECS Sports Desk and OECS Sports in particular dearly over the years.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
right, and even outside of the OECS, sporting organizations, sporting teams would have used LIAT to get around, whether it's to Trinidad to Barbados, or whether it's to Antigua, you know, um, you know. So we really on the back foot when it comes to regional air transportation and sports tourism, Barry.
Yeah, we are, definitely we are.
Okay, Barry, I want to thank you very much for being part of our program this evening. I think it was a very useful discussion, and I really hope that you will, Chenny and the Grenada Football Association will follow up with the GTA on that initiative, and other like minds in terms of
I
sporting
suspect I
associations.
suspect, knowing Chenny, I suspect that my phone will be ringing as soon as I get off of this call.
I wouldn't be surprised. Chenny already has a proposal up already. Yeah, in Chenny. But in a serious note, Barry, I think
Yeah.
you actually made an appeal as well for sporting associations. To and not just sporting associations in Grenada, but sporting associations in the region to contact your respective tourist boards and get involved, being part of the process.
Not just that, they have to the sporting associations have to not just see themselves as the preparation of elite teams. They have to see themselves as creating a sport for all policy, which encourages sport and leisure throughout the country, which then has health and well-being benefits to the entire country. It's not just about preparing an 11-man team to go to travel. I think the sporting organizations are missing the mark, where they have to realize that their um, their greatest legacy would be the propagation of sport throughout the entire country, creating linkages in communities, and in semi-professional and amateur leagues and so on. But we are focusing too much of our attention on elite sport, and you think that these sporting bodies think that identifying a youngster at 10 years old means that you have found the right athlete. That's not true. There are a lot of late bloomers that, if you have created a culture of sport, like in some other parts of the world, you look at places like Australia, um, um, then you will find that you may pick up people even far more talented in their later years, in their later teens. But the first thing that governing bodies have got to get back to is making sure that people enjoy themselves with sport. It should not just be about um, and all of them have nice buildings. These national governing bodies of sport, um, they all build these nice buildings, and so on. But what about the community? What about the average man in the street? What about encouraging that person who's liming on the block to come and play a sport or do something that is sporting oriented, that is fun, that is enjoyable, and that is healthy? And that is what they have to. I think that, in a sense, we've lost our way in terms of how sport is administered in some respects. We've lost our way in terms of what really is sport. Sport is meant for enjoyment. Yes, people can compete at the elite level, but most sport is not at the elite level. And I think that our national governing bodies of sport have got to focus more on the amateur and the more on the community level, and create a climate where um, uh, villages and households this is about our future and molding young people across the Caribbean. And sport is a great sport and leisure. It's a great way of doing that.
Well said, Barry. And we probably can end by saying that they should also develop a level of advocacy, not just administrating sports, but advocating for more and more people to be involved, participation as well,
Yeah.
and things like that. So, thank you very much, Barry. I appreciate your
Thanks, Mike.
presence and your involvement. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay then.
We anytime you want to chat, just let me know.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Okay then, folks. Barry Collymore, he's the chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority, and speaking a lot about the advantages and how we can take advantage, basically, of that niche in terms of sports tourism. Multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, and I say multi-billion, I think it's much more than that, industry. And whether or not the Caribbean is really in an advantage, well, it is in an advantage position, but whether or not it's taken advantage of its position with beaches and, facilities and hospitality and all the works. And as Barry's saying, that we need a lot of more imagination. And it's a situation, I think he's right about it, It's not just about governments. Yes, governments create the environment, They provide the facilities, and they have been doing so. I don't think we can challenge the fact that governments have been providing facilities. As a matter of fact, and I forgot to ask Barry about that, folks, but do you know that Grenada has a squash facility available? Yes, it is part of the stadium facility, but I don't think most folks know that, but that's another thing. So governments, they have been doing their part in terms of provision of sporting facilities. You have international cricket facilities just about everywhere in the Caribbean. International. They can host international matches. Yes. Football, track and field, and as we indicated in Southern Caribbean in terms of Trinidad, cycling, and I'm talking about the Indo cycling, the velodrome. We're talking about swimming facility, Olympic-sized swimming facilities. We have the tennis complex, just name it. But that's government's responsibility, and they have been living up to that. But where are the sporting associations in terms of the provision, in terms of utilizing, in terms of ideas, in terms of creating that sort of atmosphere for people to participate? And as Barry was saying, that they sometimes just concentrate on traveling and carrying teams to participate in other activities. But what's about trying to host, trying to create, and not just host international events, but hosting sometimes community events, which is very, very important. So I want to thank Barry for those things, for those comments. And yes, Kyron, I know about the whole opportunity regarding not just opportunity, but we have been hearing a lot about the Olympic-sized swimming pool and these things. And we do have and if I can zone in on the Grenada context, we do have number of kids, talented kids, who are available for swimming as an example, and as Simon Ross is saying, I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone plays badminton anymore. We used to play at CSA and invite other islands to come and compete. Certainly, yes, we do. So it's and we don't want to have a sort of blame game here too, but the point has been made that the national associations, they do have to get a little more involved. National associations, and involved meaning as how, for example, Chenny, the president of the Grenada Football Association, announced that their plan to invite youth teams to come to Grenada for the summer. Wow, it is that these sporting teams always move to probably the Bahamas and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. Yes, tourism related, but we also have tourists who come to Grenada, come to Trinidad, or come to St. Lucia. Why it is we cannot ensure that we have initiatives, and this should not just be something regarding the Grenada Tourism Authority or the Grenada government, but the Grenada Football Association, the Grenada Cricket Association, whether it's the Volleyball Association. Well, I'm saying volleyball, but I'm just looking at, those that may have the facilities, in terms of football and athletics. And they should be reaching out to whether it's other associations and inviting them and putting things out there, marketing a facility. I mean, treat the athletics stadium as your home. So use it as a marketing tool. Grenada Cricket Association, same thing, and then you go with the proposals to whether it's the government, the tourism authority, or whoever, and say, here, we have about 6 teams that have an interest in coming to Grenada for the summer to play a cricket series, for example. How can we make this a reality and have the discussion, But, we sometimes I think we rely a lot on, I'm not here to support or to bash anyone, but I think sometimes there's too much a reliance on government. Government should do this, government should do that. And as Barry indicated, the whole issue of the Grenada Invitational, when I came up with the idea of the Grenada Invitational, it was something in the making. I've been traveling for years, attending, international meets all over the world. And I say, well, but we are building a national stadium, so why can't we do the likewise, So I took the opportunity to go to various meets around the US, and taking notes and speaking to individuals, a lot of preparation, mind you, and things like that. So, albeit, probably I had some of the wrong people involved to some extent. That's another thing we can discuss another time. But, the whole idea is being creative, being innovative, being progressive mind, and things like that. And we need more people involved in sporting associations, not just in Grenada, but I think in the region, to capitalize on what is a very important product, sports tourism. Thank you, folks, for being part of our program. I do want to invite you to join us on Saturday for the Saturday Sports Special. It very much been a pleasure for this week, being part of the program. And I want to thank once again Barry Collymore for being and accepting the invitation to be with us. Thank you very much, folks, and see you on Saturday from 1 o'clock for the Saturday Sports Special.